Long, long time ago in the wintertime, when the snowflakes were falling like little white feathers from the sky, a beautiful queen sat beside her window, which was framed in black ebony and stitched. As she worked, she looked sometimes at the falling snow, and so it happened that she pricked her finger with her needle, so that 3 drops of blood fell upon the snow. "How pretty the red blood looked upon the dazzling white!" the queen said to herself as she saw it. "Ah me, if only I had a dear little child as white as the snow, as rosy as the blood, and with hair as black as the ebony window frame." Soon afterwards a little daughter came to her, who was white as snow, rosy as the blood, and whose hair was as black as ebony. So she was called Little Snow White. But alas, when the little one came, the good queen dies. A year passed away, and the king took another wife. She was very beautiful, but so proud and haughty that she could not bear to be surpassed in beauty by anyone. She possessed a wonderful mirror which could answer her when she stood before it and said, "Mirror, mirror upon the wall, who is the fairest of all?" The mirror answered, "Thou, O queen, art the fairest of all." And the queen was contented, because she knew that the mirror could speak nothing but the truth. But as time passed on, little Snow White grew more and more beautiful, until when she was 7 years old, she was as lovely as a bright day, and still more lovely than the queen herself, so that when the lady one day asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror upon the wall, who is the fairest of all?" it answered, "O Lady Queen, thou fair ye be, Snow White is fairer far to see." The queen was horrified, and from that moment envy and pride grew in her heart like rank weeds, until one day she called her huntsman and said, "Take the child away into the woods and kill her, for I can no longer bear the sight of her, and when you return, bring with you her heart, so that I may know you have obeyed my will." The huntsman dared not disobey, so he led Snow White out into the wood and placed an arrow in his bow to pierce her innocent heart. But the little maid begged him to spare her life, and the child's beauty touched his heart with pity, so that he bade her run away. Then, as a young wild boar came rushing by, he killed it, took out its heart, and carried it home to the queen. Poor little Snow White was now all alone in the wild wood, and so frightened was she that she trembled at every leaf that rustled. So she began to run, and ran on and on until she came to a little house, where she went in to rest. In the little house, everything she saw was tiny, but more dainty and clean than words can tell. Upon a white-covered table stood 7 little plates, and upon each plate lay a little spoon, besides which were 7 knives and forks and 7 little goblets. Against the wall and side by side stood 7 little beds covered with snow-white sheets. Snow White was so hungry and thirsty that she took a little food from each of the 7 plates and drank a few drops of wine from each goblet, for she did not wish to take everything away from one. Then, because she was so tired, she crept into one bed after another, seeking for rest, but one was too long, another too short, and so on, until she came to the 7th, which suited her exactly. So she said her prayers and soon fell fast asleep. When night fell, the masters of the little house came home. They were 7 dwarfs, who worked with a pickaxe and spade, searching for copper and gold in the heart of the mountains. They lit their 7 candles, and then they saw that someone had been to visit them. The first said, "Who has been sitting in my chair?" The second said, "Who has been eating from my plate?" The third, "Who has taken a piece of my bread?" The fourth, "Who has taken some of my vegetables?" The fifth, "Who has been using my fork?" The sixth, "Who has been cutting with my knife?" The seventh, "Who has been drinking out of my goblet?" The first looked around and saw that his bed was rumpled, so he said,
"Who has been getting into my bed?"
Then the others looked around and each one cried,
"Someone has been on my bed too!"
But the seventh saw little Snow White lying asleep in his bed and called the others to come and look at her. And they cried aloud with surprise and fetched their 7 little candles so that they might see her the better. And they were so pleased with her beauty that they let her sleep on all night. When the sun rose, Snow White awoke and said, "Oh!" How frightened she was when she saw the 7 little dwarfs, but they were very friendly and asked her what her name was. "My name is Snow White," she answered.
"And how did you come to get into our house?" questioned the dwarfs.
Then she told them how her cruel stepmother had intended her to be killed, but how the huntsman had spared her life and she had run on until she reached a little house. And the dwarfs said, "If you will take care of our house, cook for us, and make the beds, wash, mend, and knit, and keep everything neat and clean, then you may stay with us altogether, and you shall want for nothing." "With all my heart," answered Snow White, and so she stayed. She kept the house neat and clean for the dwarfs, who went off early in the morning to search for copper and gold in the mountains, and who expected their meal to be standing ready for them when they returned at night. All day long Snow White was alone, and the good little dwarfs warned her to be careful to let no one into the house.
"For," they say, "your stepmother will soon discover you are living here."
The queen, believing, of course, that Snow White was dead, and that therefore she was again the most beautiful lady in the land, went to her mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror upon the wall, who is the fairest of all?" Then the mirror answered, "O Lady Queen, thou fair ye be, Snow White is fairer far to see. Over the hills and far away, she dwells with 7 dwarfs today." How angry she was, for she knew that the mirror spoke the truth, and that the huntsman must have deceived her. She thought and thought how she might kill Snow White, for she knew that she would have neither rest nor peace until she really was the most beautiful lady in the land. At length she decided what to do. She painted her face and dressed herself like an old peddler woman, so that no one could recognize her, and in this disguise she climbed the 7 mountains that lay between her and the dwarf's house, and knocked at their door and cried, "Good wares to sell very cheap today." Snow White peeped from the window and said, "Good day, good wife, and what are your wares?" "All sorts of pretty things, my dear," answered the woman, "silk and laces of every color," and she held up a bright-colored one made of plaited silks. "Surely I might let this honest old woman come in," thought Snow White, and unbolted the door and bought the pretty lace. "Dear, dear, what a figure you are, child," said the old woman. "Come, let me lace you properly for once." Snow White had no suspicious thoughts, so she placed herself in front of the old woman that she might fasten her dress with the new silk lace. But in less than no time the wicked creature had laced her so tightly that she could not breathe, but fell down upon the ground as though she were dead.